You clicked because that ball keeps starting straight and then peeling right, and no matter how hard you swing left to fix it, it just curves harder into the trees. I know that exact feeling. And here's the truth almost nobody told me for years. Your slice was never really about your swing path. It was decided by your club face before you even reached the ball. Fix the face, and the curve dies. That single idea was buried under decades of bad instruction that made you chase the wrong thing. And I am going to give you the exact way earlier players and modern launch monitors both prove it, so you can stop losing balls, strokes, and your Saturday morning to a problem you were never taught correctly. I still remember the moment it hit me. I was standing on the third hole at a little Muni course, having just bought my fourth sleeve of balls that month, watching a ball I striped sail out over the fairway and then bend, hard, over the fence into somebody's backyard. I had spent nearly $200 that season on golf balls alone. $200 feeding a slice I thought was a swing flaw, when the real culprit was sitting in my hands the entire time. And the fix costs nothing. It works with the clubs you already own in your living room tonight. Stay with me, because what I found in a 1969 instruction manual and later saw confirmed by radar tracking changed everything about how I hit the ball. Let me start with the thing that cost me the most, because it is the thing you have almost certainly been told wrong. For most of my golfing life, I believed the ball started out in the direction my club was swinging. That is what the magazine said. That is what the guy at the range said. Swing path sends the ball out, and then side spin curves it. So when my ball sliced right, I did the logical thing. I aimed further left. I swung more to the left. I tried to come across the ball to hold it straight, and every single time, I made the slice worse. I did not know it, but I was pouring fuel on the fire. Here is what I did not understand, and what almost no amateur understands until someone finally shows them. When you swing hard to the left to stop a slice, you are not closing the club face. You are actually increasing the difference between where your face points and where your club travels. And that difference, that gap, is exactly what puts side spin on the ball. The harder I fought the slice with my swing direction, the more I sliced. It was a trap, a perfect, frustrating loop that kept me buying golf balls and kept me convinced I just was not talented enough. The number that finally set me free is this. On a driver, roughly 75 to 85% of the ball's starting direction is controlled by where your club face is pointing at impact, not your swing path. Read that again, because it reverses everything. The face is the boss. The path is the junior partner. Your ball starts almost exactly where your club face looks, and then it curves away from the face depending on how your path relates to it. So if your ball starts down the middle and curves hard right, your face was open. Not your swing, your face. This was not always known with certainty, and that is the part that stings. For most of the 20th century, instructors taught what were called the old ball flight laws, and they had the whole thing backward. They believed the path started the ball and the face curved it. They taught it in good faith. They just did not have the tools to see the truth. And so, millions of us were handed a set of fixes that made our slices worse generation after generation because the instruction itself was pointed in the wrong direction. Then came the measuring. In the early 2000s, radar launch monitors, the kind that track a golf ball thousands of times in flight, started recording what actually happens at impact, frame by frame, at speeds the human eye cannot catch. And the data was undeniable. The ball obeys the face first. Companies that make these tracking systems published the findings, and teaching slowly, painfully began to change. But here is the problem. The old advice never died. It is still living in your head, in your buddy's tips, in half the videos you have watched, and every day it survives, it keeps people slicing and keeps them spending. So let me resolve this first piece for you, and then show you why it goes even deeper. The relief is this. You do not have to rebuild your swing. You have been trying to fix the hardest, biggest, most athletic part of the motion when the real lever is small, simple, and mostly about your setup. But understanding that the face is the boss is only step one, because now you have to ask the obvious next question: what is actually holding your club face open in the first place? And the answer is something you do before you even move the club. The thing controlling your open face, more than anything else, is your grip. And I want you to hear me carefully, because this is where I lost years. Your grip is not about comfort. It is not about what feels natural. What feels natural to a slicer is almost always the exact grip that guarantees the slice. Mine felt perfectly comfortable while it cost me a stroke or more on nearly every driving hole for the better part of a decade. Here is what was happening. I gripped the club with my lead hand, the left hand for a right-handed player turned too far to the left on top of the handle, so that when I looked down I could only see one knuckle, maybe none. It felt clean. It felt like the way you would hold anything. But that hand position meant that when I swung through impact at full speed, the natural motion of my arms and the weight of the club head pulled the face wide open, pointing right at the exact moment the ball left the club. I was not swinging wrong. I was set up to fail before I started. The forgotten fix, the one that generations of good players simply took for granted, is to rotate both hands slightly away from the target on the handle. For a right-handed golfer, that means turning your lead hand to the right until you can look down and see 2, maybe 3 knuckles. Then your trail hand sits underneath, with its palm feeling like it points more toward the sky than toward the ground. This is called, in the old language, a stronger grip. Not stronger as in tighter, you never squeeze harder. Stronger as in rotated into a position of control. Ben Hogan wrote about the power of the correct hand position in his book from 1957, and players were arguing about grip strength long before that. But somewhere along the way, as clubs got more forgiving and marketing got louder, the plain old truth about the grip got drowned out by talk about the newest driver and the most expensive lesson package. And I want you to notice who benefits from you believing your slice requires a new $400 club. It is never the person telling you to just fix your grip for free. Now, when you make this change, I need to warn you about something, because it nearly made me quit the fix on day one. A correct, stronger grip will feel wrong. It will feel like you are going to hook the ball straight into the woods on the left. That feeling of wrongness is not a warning, it is the proof. You have spent years with your hands in a slicing position, so the correct position feels foreign. Give it 3 range sessions, just 3. Push through that awkward feeling, and you will watch that curve start to soften and straighten in real time. But grip alone is not the whole story, because there is a second thing your hands are doing at the top of the swing that quietly reopens the face even after you have fixed your hold. Let me expose the hidden cost here, because this one is sneaky. You can fix your grip perfectly and still slice if your lead wrist collapses at the top of your backswing. And most slicers, I promise you, have a collapsing wrist and have never once heard those words in their life. Here is what it looks like. As you swing the club to the top, your lead wrist can do one of 2 things. It can stay firm and flat, like the back of your hand and your forearm form one straight line, or it can cup bend backward so the back of your hand tilts up toward the sky. That little cup, that tiny backward bend most people never notice, throws the club face wide open at the top. And an open face at the top comes down as an open face at impact, which is your slice, delivered right on schedule. This is where I found the piece of buried knowledge that changed my whole understanding, and I want to give it to you exactly. In 1969, a man named Homer Kelley published a dense, strange, brilliant book called The Golfing Machine. He was not a famous touring pro. He was an engineer, and he broke the golf swing down into mechanical parts the way an engineer takes apart a motor. And the single idea at the heart of his work, the thing he considered the master key to controlling the club face, was what he called the flat lead wrist at impact. Kelley's insight was that the club face and the back of your lead wrist move together as one unit. Wherever the back of that wrist points, the face points. Keep the wrist flat and the face stays square. Let it cup and the face flies open. It sounds almost too simple, but this engineer put it in mechanical terms that could not be argued with, and the best teachers of the last 50 years quietly built their careers on his framework, while the average weekend golfer never heard his name. That knowledge existed, it was written down. It just never made it to you, because nobody profits from handing you a free idea that fixes your game forever. If any of this is landing hard right now, I want to mention that I put all of this together, the face laws, the grip fix, the wrist mechanics, into a digital book called First Swing, and there are deeper versions called Deeper Fixes and Full System if you want to go further. You can find the link in the description below this video. It is the same plain, no-nonsense approach you are hearing right now, written down, so you can come back to it every time you head to the range. So here is how you use it. At the top of your backswing, you want the back of your lead hand flat in line with your forearm. And through impact, you want that same flat feeling, the back of the lead hand facing the target as you strike, not tilting upward. When that wrist stays flat, the face stays square, and the ball has no reason to slice. This is the mechanical heart of the fix, straight from an engineer who cared about truth more than about selling you anything. Now, I can already hear some of you. You are thinking this sounds like the kind of thing that only works for people who play 3 times a week, who have money for lessons, who have a garage full of training aids and a fancy launch monitor. You are thinking this is not for someone like you, someone who plays a handful of times a year, borrows a cart, and just wants to stop embarrassing themselves off the first tee. So this next part is built specifically for you, because everything I am about to show you costs nothing, needs no range, no coach, and no special gear. You can do all of it tonight, in your living room, in your socks. Start with the mirror. Take any club, stand in front of a mirror or even a dark window where you can see your reflection, and simply set your grip, look down, count the knuckles on your lead hand. If you see 0 or 1, turn that hand away from the target until you see 2 or 3. That is it. That is the single most valuable free adjustment in all of golf, and it takes 10 seconds. Do it 50 times tonight while the television is on. You are teaching your hands a new home, and repetition in your living room is worth more than any lesson you pay for, because you can do it hundreds of times for free. Next, the flat wrist check, and you do not need a swing to feel it. Hold the club out in front of you at waist height and set your lead wrist flat, so the back of your hand and your forearm form one clean line. Feel that. Now cup the wrist backward and watch the club face open up toward the sky. Then flatten it again and watch the face square up. Do that back and forth, slowly, 20 times. You are training your eyes and your hands to recognize the exact difference between a square face and an open one, and you are doing it in slow motion where your body can actually learn it. Here is a third one, and it is my favorite because it uses something you already have. Take a hand towel, roll it up and tuck the middle of it under both armpits, holding it across your chest as you make slow, small swings. This keeps your arms connected to your body, which stops the disconnected, arms-only motion that flings the face open. If the towel drops, your arms ran away from your body, the same runaway motion that opens the face and starts the slice. You just diagnosed a swing fault with a bath towel in your kitchen for free, while the golf industry would love to sell you a molded plastic version of that exact towel for $40. And here's the one that connects it all together. The check you can do without swinging at anything. Set up to an imaginary ball. Take the club back slowly to about hip height and stop. Look at the club face. The leading edge of the club, the bottom front edge, should be tilted at roughly the same angle as your spine, not pointing straight up at the sky. If that leading edge is pointing skyward, your face is already open and you have not even reached the top yet. Fix it right there in slow motion in your hallway, and you've removed the slice at its source before it ever has a chance to happen on the course. None of that required a membership, a coach, or $1. That is the whole point of what I am doing here. The knowledge to fix your slice was never expensive or complicated. It was made to feel that way, so that a problem you could solve with a towel and a mirror would instead keep you spending. But if you have followed me this far, you are ready for the piece I promised at the start, the single method that pulled all of this together for me and finally killed my slice for good. For years, I did every drill I could find, and I still could not feel what a square face was supposed to feel like at the actual moment of impact. The swing happens too fast. By the time I thought about my face, the ball was already gone, curving into the neighbor's yard. I needed a way to feel a closed, controlled face at impact without needing the reflexes of a professional. And I found it in the oldest, plainest instruction of all. The kind of thing that got written down before the marketing machine took over and then got quietly forgotten because it was too simple to sell. Here is the method. It comes down to teaching your body one exaggerated feeling on purpose until the real thing becomes automatic. You go to a spot where you can make slow swings, the backyard, the range, even a patch of grass with no ball at all. You take your new, stronger grip with the 2 or 3 knuckles showing. You make a short, slow swing, only from about waist height back to waist height through. And at the moment your club reaches the bottom, you deliberately roll your trail forearm over your lead forearm so that the toe of the club, the far end of the club head, passes the heel and points the face down toward the ground. You are teaching the face to close, actively, with intent. It will feel absurd. It will feel like you are turning the club over far too much, like every ball would hook wildly left. But that is exactly the point. You have spent years leaving the face wide open, so to reach square, you must first practice what feels like way too closed. This is the release the old players talked about, the crossing over of the forearms that lets the club face rotate from open through square to closed as it passes the ball. Somewhere in the modern era, we were told to hold the face still, to keep it square by keeping it quiet. And for a natural slicer, that advice is poison, because a quiet face is a stuck open face. The reason this works is pure physics, and it goes right back to Homer Kelley and the flat wrist. As your forearms cross and your lead wrist stays flat, the face rotates through impact instead of hanging open. You do maybe 30 of these slow, exaggerated closing swings. Then you make a normal speed swing and try to keep just a whisper of that same feeling. And here is the moment I will never forget. The first time I did this and made a full swing. My ball started slightly right and drew back to the middle. A draw. From a lifelong slicer. I actually laughed out loud on the range, alone, because after all those years and all that money, the fix was learning to feel a face that closes instead of one that hangs open in the wind. Build it in layers so it holds up under pressure. First, the slow waist-to-waist swings with the deliberate forearm roll until closing the face feels normal instead of extreme. Then longer swings at half speed, keeping that same crossing over feeling through the ball. Then full swings where you stop consciously trying to close it and simply trust that your new grip and your flat wrist do the work for you. Layer by layer, you are overriding years of an open face with a face that squares itself automatically. And the whole progression costs you nothing but a few evenings and the willingness to feel silly for a little while. That is the hero's tale of this whole thing, if you think about it. The knowledge was there. An engineer wrote it down in 1969. Great players lived by the flat wrist and the crossing release long before that. Then the industry got loud, the drivers got expensive, the lessons got packaged, and the plain truth got pushed to the back of the shelf because free fixes do not sell $400 clubs. But the truth survived in old books and in the data from machines that cannot lie. And now it is in your hands. Literally in your hands, in the way you hold the club, in the way your wrist stays flat and your forearms cross through the ball. So let me leave you with what really happened here, because it is bigger than golf. You did not just learn to fix a slice tonight. You took back something that was quietly taken from you, the simple, provable knowledge that your problem was small and cheap to solve all along, sold to you as something big and expensive so you would keep paying for it. That is the feeling I want you to hold on to. Not the mechanics. The relief of realizing you were never the problem, the bad information was. And that makes you a certain kind of person. The kind who would rather learn the real thing once than keep renting a fix forever. The kind who looks at a problem everybody sells a gadget for and asks whether an engineer already solved it for free half a century ago. If that is you, then you belong here with the rest of us who got tired of paying for what we could do ourselves. Now, I want to hear one specific thing from you. Go back to the very first check I gave you, the knuckles on your lead hand. Before tonight, when you looked down at your grip, how many knuckles could you see? 1? None? Tell me that number in the comments, because I read them and I want to see how many of you were set up to slice from the very first inch without ever knowing it. Just leave the number. That is all. It tells the whole story. And if this pulled back the curtain for you, stay with me, because I am putting together the next one on the exact opposite problem, the pull hook that shows up the moment some of you overdo this fix, and the tiny setup detail that tells you which way your ball will curve before you ever take the club back. It is the other half of controlling your ball, and almost nobody connects the two. You found the first piece tonight. Do not stop now, because the golfer who understands both is the one who finally stops guessing and starts aiming. Now, this video showed you why the face is the boss. Inside the Old Ways Almanac, I pick up right where we just stopped and walk you through the full Clubface drill. And if something isn't clicking, ask me directly. A real person, me, answers you. No bot. You won't be doing this alone. You belong here with us. Just point your phone at the code on screen, and you can cancel anytime.